Hello, I'm Rob Pittman. I'm the Governance Program Officer with the Natural Resource Governance Institute. And I'm here with Daniel Gbondo, who is a Natural Resource Governance Advisor from the Government of Sierra Leone. Daniel, I'd like to start by asking you, in Sierra Leone, natural resources haven't always been associated with prosperity and with good things. Can you elaborate a little bit more about the history and the context of natural resources in Sierra Leone?
Oh, absolutely. Natural resources, well, the discovery of diamonds actually started the whole extractive industries in the 1930s in Sierra Leone. Diamond mining was largely artisanal until the late 1950s, early 1960s, when the Sierra Leone Selection Trust was established. That was an industrial mining company. In those times, there was a mad rush for diamonds, but then there was a realization afterwards that people were abandoning their farms. Before, again, the discovery of diamonds, Sierra Leone was exporting rice because it's really conducive for rice production. In the late 1980s, diamonds became a symbol of corruption, of amassing of wealth, and there was largely institutionalization of corruption in the extractive sector, which in many ways led to the collapse of the state that culminated in the 11 years of brutal civil war that we had in our country. And it's clear that revenues from diamonds played a key role in financing the conflict. Whilst diamonds may not be the main reason for the outbreak of the conflict, but it clearly paid for the arms and ammunition and served as a disincentive for peace building. Because if rebels can have control over diamond fields for long periods of time without any confrontation from the government, there was no incentive for them to come to the negotiation table, which will in effect take the diamond resources from their control. And it is also important to note that diamonds play such a key role that it became the center of discussion during the Lome peace process that ended the war, that finally gave the control of strategic mineral resources to the then rebel leader Foday Sankoh, which again speaks to the fact that whilst there were political undertones, there was this question of lack of democracy as a reason for the conflict, but that the rebels were overtly concerned about the management, about financial benefits to the organization. We speak to the fact that their concern was really not about bringing democracy to Sierra Leone, but it was about controlling diamond resources. So in effect, diamonds have not been a blessing in that sphere, but also socially and environmentally, there have been huge environmental degradation, particularly in mining communities, and that predates the war. Even before the war, as a boy growing up in a diamond mining town of Koidu, I lost a friend in an abandoned diamond pit. We were playing soccer ball, we kicked the ball, he did not realize that the pit was full with water, he drowned in that pit. And that, as a grown-up man, I reflected on that particular incident and tried to understand why did that happen? What were the issues? What role did the state play in ignoring, say, mine closure plans, when I know now that there was a mine closure plan that was completely ignored that resulted in the death of my friend. So these are some of the challenges that we have had to live with in the extractive sector in Sierra Leone.
So something interesting was that you were talking about how diamonds and the extractive sector were very much responsible for the collapse of the state in the 80s and the 90s. At the moment, I understand, with these new large-scale iron ore mines opening up now. The idea is that the extractive industry will now be the thing that builds the state. Are you optimistic for this future?
I am really highly optimistic for many reasons. One, we have learned a bitter lesson from the 11 years of war in our country that I said was in large part fueled by the extractive sector. And because we said to ourselves and as a government that never again should Sierra Leone or will Sierra Leone go down the path of destruction. Rather, we should harness our natural resources for the betterment of this and future generations. And which is why to demonstrate that, we are putting in place structures that did not exist before the war, for example, to ensure that we provide the governance regime that will enhance transparency and accountability, that creates the space for civil society engagement with government, that citizens will hold their elected representatives accountable for the stewardship that they promised during campaigns. We have established institutions, for example, the regulatory institutions, the legal and policy framework in our country. We overhaul the whole legal policy and regulatory regimes that did not create transparency and accountability at all. Again, I would say I am highly optimistic because we have made some achievements. For example, recently we have been declared a compliant country for the EITI, where government is really transparent about the rents they receive from companies, and companies also report what they pay. And there are mechanisms for the distribution of these revenues and recently, we've seen huge mining companies opening up. You talked about the iron ore deposits that have been discovered and are currently being mined. You talk about the rutile. You talk about bauxite, diamond mining going on, gold mining going on. Again, we see that the extractive sector is becoming the engine of economic growth. But then we're also mindful that overdependence on the extractive sector, which is largely a non-renewable resource, might create future problems for us, which is why revenue management, how do we spend the revenues that we are getting today to diversify our economy, to ensure that we develop our middle class, we develop our labor force. We are using the local content policy, for example, and there have been discussions about legislating that to ensure that we do not only extract, but we concentrate on extraction, but we also build other sectors of our country. We build the middle level manpower. We train our people in electricity production, for example, mechanics, drivers. We ensure that the educational sector is developed and diversified. So I am highly optimistic, and the key point there is the political commitment, the political will that drives this process. For example, the EITI process is anchored in the office of the president. The NRC charter, for example, that we're using as a benchmarking tool to self-assess where we are at right now. We know we've done some very good job at managing our resources, about contracting, negotiating contracts, etc. But we still need some more work to be done, which is why we are using this tool to inform us about where we are right now, what are the missing links in the decision chain, and what is it that we will do as a government and as a people, civil society together, and industry players to make sure that the revenues that we have today will not only benefit our generation, but also generations yet unborn.
So that's very, very interesting, and a lot of things going on. And what struck me as challenging is the fact that the picture you paint is that natural resources involve so many different agencies, departments, ministries. You know, you were talking about the Ministry of Education, you were talking about Ministry of Finance, then there is all the sector management issues, which are normally run by the Ministry of Mines. How is it that the government is working to try and coordinate these things and, you know, avoid an approach where everybody's thinking on their own in a siloed way?
We see the Natural Resource Charter as a very useful tool in helping us to understand the challenges that are inherent in the extractive sector and assessing ourselves where we are at right now, what policy, legal and regulatory regimes that we need to put in place to enhance good governance of the sector. And particularly using the precepts that will help us to make decisions about revenue management, where we spend our revenue, how we avoid the so-called Dutch disease, and create the environment, the enabling environment for economic diversification. So that is what we're doing, and we're using the multi-stakeholder approach, bringing civil society, government and company officials on the same table to talk about these issues that we all care about, to talk about local effects of mining operations, and to talk also about how local communities will benefit, how the government will be able to evenly spread our natural resource and wealth. And we hope at the end of the day, all of these actions and multi-stakeholder engagement and a holistic approach to extractive industry management will be a game changer for us and make the extractive sector a blessing instead of a curse.
Thank you very much for your time, Daniel.
Thank you.